And so today is a day long, but we're doing this so that the usual Saturday morning program still happens in the normal-ish way. So we start out at 9 to 10:30 is kind of the usual, how do you apply the Dhamma to this? And then I've actually got, I'm going to share the screen. I've got a schedule written up for you, along with the notes that I want to share with you today. So, talk and discussion, 9 to 10:30. I've got a little Z on the top because that's what we're Zooming. And then at 10:30, there'll be meal prep, hopefully. Well, we'll see how it goes. And 11 o'clock, the meal offering, 12, cleanup, and maybe some mindful movement, we'll see. And at 1 p.m., some more Dhamma encouragement so on Zoom. And at 3 p.m., the Q&A on Zoom. The Zoom will probably be up and open most of the time anyway, but those are the times when we'll be actually paying attention to y'all out there. So for whatever time you can come, we're happy to have people join us online and in person. And everybody who's been coming to KBB for a while knows that we're happy when we have daylongs for people to come for whatever part that they can. And if they need to leave again, that's fine. So today, the theme is thought or thinking. And it's been something that's been really becoming more and more clear how important it is to pay attention to whether our thoughts, you might say, are in a positive vein or in a negative vein. And I want to talk about that today. And I thought, and the best way to start is with Majjhima Nikaya 19, because the Buddha really lays this out. And it's easy to gloss over a few of the things that he says, I think, that are extremely important. So we'll take, a little bit more time with that. So thus have I heard. So if you want to look at the screen, you can, but you don't have to. Those of you in the room, I'm just going to read this and talk about the important bits. So I have heard at one time the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. And there the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, Venerable Sir, they replied, and the Buddha said this: before my awakening, when I was still unawakened but intent on awakening, I thought, why don't I meditate by continually dividing my thoughts into two classes? Now, this is Bhante Sujato's translation, so it's a little different maybe than what you've been used to if you've been a kind of, I know as I have kind of grown up on Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. So there are a few differences that I think are helpful. He says, so what he did was assign sensual, malicious, and cruel thoughts into one class, and assign thoughts of renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness into the second class. And there are different translations for these different kinds of thoughts. Sensual thoughts, they're usually, instead of malicious, oftentimes, and I think Bhikkhu Bodhi translates it as ill will instead of malicious. And then cruel on the negative side, and renunciation or letting go, and goodwill and harmlessness on the positive side. And I've got in parentheses at the bottom there, letting go, kindness, and gentleness, which are the words that Ajahn Brahm uses. And I really like those. I really like thinking of it as letting go, thoughts of kindness, thoughts of gentleness rather than harmlessness. And it's the opposite of being cruel, to be gentle. At least for me, those are the words that really hit home. And so it's kind of, when I look at this for myself, and I imagine for many of you also, I don't really think of my thoughts as malicious or cruel. That feels a little too extreme. Certainly sensual thoughts, like any kind of wishing for or thinking about, what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell. That's the world of sensuality. It doesn't have to be extremely sensual or sexual, just, like all of the things that we look to most of the time for some kind of comfort or some kind of pleasure. That's the sensual side. And the renunciation side, the letting go, it's letting go of trying to find joy, peace, or happiness and all that, even though we do, momentarily. There's nothing wrong with being comfortable. Renunciation doesn't mean you have to be, sleeping on beds of nails and, et cetera, et cetera. And the Buddha, of course, disapproved of austerities. And a lot of times I think when we think of renunciation, we think, oh, I'm going to have to give up what I need or what I like. And I think it's valuable, particularly as we talk about how to divide our thoughts into these two categories, is to really see that letting go means not being so attached, not being so greedy, not being so worried, about having what we need or having what we want or getting what we want, but to let go of that clinging, let go of that attachment, let go and be generous, think in terms of a giving and generosity instead. And then, maybe our thoughts occasionally go towards ill will, but maybe in yourself you don't find yourself wanting anyone to have any problems, and yet there can be a negativity, judgment, criticism, and then instead there can be kindness and gentleness. So then the Buddha said, I meditated, diligent, keen, and resolute. A sensual thought arose, and I understood this sensual thought has arisen in me, and it leads to hurting myself, hurting others, or hurting both. So I don't know if you can think of an example of that, like something simple, like we want the largest piece of, whatever it is at the mealtime. And instead, we might want it to be exactly the same as what the other person we're eating with would get. Or maybe we want to give them the biggest piece. And so it's like there's this, kind of selfishness that comes with this sensual desire, maybe. There are 1,000 examples, but you might discover one today as you're moving through the day, whether you're with us or not. My encouragement for today is that we really look at these, that are thinking, really see what it involves and what might be kind of just behind it. And the Buddha said, this brings me to hurt myself, or to hurt others, or to hurt both. And it blocks wisdom. It's on the side of anguish, and it doesn't lead to nibbana. And actually, I replaced extinguishment here with nibbana. Bhante Sujato uses extinguishment, and it always feels a little too close to nihilism to me, even though that is what nibbana means. But nibbana has so much more depth to it, so I leave it here. When I reflected that it leads to hurting myself, it went away. When I reflected that it leads to hurting others, it went away. And when I reflected that it leads to hurting both, it went away. So having the thought and then thinking about its result caused the thought to vanish. And a lot of times we might ask ourselves, well, how do I change my thinking? And so this is one way. And then when he said, when I reflected that it blocks wisdom, it's on the side of anguish, and it doesn't lead to nibbana, it went away. So I gave up, got rid of, and eliminated my sensual thoughts that arose. So this is our practice today. Really noticing any thought that comes into the mind. What are its qualities on this spectrum of sensuality, negativity, or letting go, and positive, kind, gentle thoughts. So then the Buddha said the same thing about malicious thoughts and cruel thoughts. When he understood this cruel thought has arisen in me, it leads to hurting myself, hurting others, and hurting both. It blocks wisdom, it's on the side of anguish, and it doesn't lead to nibbana. And when I reflected that it leads to hurting myself, hurting others, hurting both, it went away. And when I reflected that it blocks wisdom, it's on the side of anguish, and it doesn't lead to nibbana, it went away. So I gave up, got rid of, and eliminated any cruel thoughts that arose. Whatever a mendicant frequently thinks about and considers becomes their heart's inclination. So this is the part where the Buddha is really cementing in the deep importance of this practice. If they often think about and consider sensual thoughts, they've given up the thought of renunciation to cultivate sensual thought. So when we are thinking what we might gain, what we're gonna indulge in sensuality, again, I want to be clear that this doesn't mean it's wrong to have food that tastes good or enjoy, or anything that is reasonable. But if there's that attachment, that fire behind it, that either we're thinking we're gonna somehow bring a sense of safety or lasting happiness, we're going to be disappointed. And also there's a tendency to be selfish. And so with that selfishness, there's going to be pain. It's on the side of anguish for sure. And if we often think malicious thoughts, then we're giving up the thought of kindness to cultivate that malicious thought. And if we think about that, is my thinking about this kind right now? Or is it harsh? Or is it, even like I said, even a little bit, critical of someone and having kind of an edge about that? Can we think this same thought from a place of kindness, and how does it change? And sometimes we might not notice or know how to do that without using speech as well. Like if and speech is, it starts with thoughts. So if we say something on the side of criticism or that's harsh, then we can look at how can I say the same thing. Like maybe it's something that's true, that's worth understanding and knowing. Come on in. Maybe it's true, it's worth understanding and knowing, but we don't have to have the negativity around it. So, it's important to know our own strengths and weaknesses, and to some degree those of others. Sometimes we need to talk about, what's going on with someone. But we can talk about it from a negative place, or we can talk about it from a place of understanding, kindness, acceptance, appreciation for the good also. There are different ways. And so if we can see, even first on a coarser level, but then on a more subtle level, am I being generous and kind in the way I'm describing this, or am I being harsh and maybe cruel is too strong, or maybe malicious is too strong? Or not. That's true too, like I was watching a Dhamma talk once, this monk was talking about, and he said, there are those times when you just really want to hurt someone. And I'm like, really? I don't know. But yeah, it can be, of course, so just to know that this is a normal part of human behavior and human life and human thinking. And how we manage our thinking it's the foundation for how we manage our speech and our actions. And as there was a little conversation on WhatsApp this morning, where it was Adrian who brought in one of the teachings of Ajahn Jayasaro, one of his handwritten messages. And it was really about right effort. And like what's right effort? Then it's having the encouraging our wholesome thoughts to continue. I'm starting kind of on the back end of it, turning it upside down, but having wholesome thoughts and encouraging those to continue, keep those going. And when there are unwholesome thoughts, calm them down and keep the unwholesome thoughts from arising. And this is all connected to it. And then Ajahn Jayasara also connected that to our sila, to our moral discipline. And that comes, of course, in thought, word, and action. And this is kind of like all of these are connected, right? This right thinking or right intention, especially if you think of it as, for me, letting go, kindness and gentleness. If that's our intention, if that's where we're coming from, we'll make mistakes for sure, but they're not going to go too far astray from, really being clearly on the path. And so our sila gets better and better. And then you can see how this is connected to right effort. You can see how it's connected to right speech. You can see how it's connected to right action and right livelihood. And the whole Noble Eightfold Path starts to fall in place. And then, of course, we're talking about meditation here. He's saying he meditated and these thoughts are arising. Obviously, he's not in the jhanas at that point. He was still an unenlightened bodhisattva, as he says in the suttas. But thought is an important part of what we need to deeply understand, and it comes in our meditation. And then to use thought It's not just like, oh, the only goal is to not think, but to use thought and to really develop ourselves through that cultivation. So this, what we frequently think, becomes our heart's inclination. And also the way, it's not just specific topics, it's the way we think. If we think negatively, that's what we are, developing. That's what we're cultivating. If we think kindly, etc., that's what we're cultivating. And then he uses this lovely simile. Suppose in the last month of the rainy season, so this is October, when the crops grow closely together, the crops are mature, then the cowherd must take care of the cattle, and he'd tap and poke them with his staff on the side and keep them in check, because he doesn't want them to get into the crops, because as it says here, he could be executed, imprisoned, fined, or condemned. That's pretty strong. But you wouldn't want the cattle to ruin the crops. And this is the same way we have to do with the mind. We need to, here, this is a footnote that came from Bhante Sujato. At this point, a meditator guards against unwholesome thoughts gently and persistently. So you can kind of see this ongoing gentle. So see, we want to be gentle in training our own mind. If we want to train the mind to be gentle, we have to be gentle in training it. And we can, persistently, we want to keep at it. That's really what right effort is. We think right effort, the way it sounds, effort, like we're really having to strain and push, but it's much more about consistently being persistent, being consistent. So he said, in the same way, I thought that unskillful qualities have the drawbacks of sordidness and corruption, and skillful qualities have the benefit and cleansing power of renunciation. And yet, it's good if you can think of an example in your own life where letting go of something really brought that cleansing, that feeling of cleansing, or openness and freedom. Because those kinds of memories can really help us. Then as I meditated, diligent, keen, and resolute, a thought of renunciation arose in my mind. This thought of renunciation has arisen in me. This thought of letting go. Like even in your mind, you let go of something you've been clinging to, and you know how that feels. And he says, it doesn't lead to hurting myself, hurting others, or hurting both. It nourishes wisdom. It's on the side of freedom from anguish, and it leads to nibbana. And if I were to keep on thinking and considering this all night, all day, all night and day, I see no danger that would come from that. Now that's really beautiful, to really think how you can think kind and gentle and thoughts of letting go all day and all night, and it's never going to hurt anybody. So there's a footnote here that I included from Bhante Sujato also. Meditators often wish to reach a state free of thought, but thought is a natural and essential function of the mind, and wholesome habits of thought are part of the Eightfold Path, which I think we've already said, but it's nice to see it there. Still, thinking and considering for too long would tire my body. And when the body is tired, the mind is stressed. And when the mind is stressed, it's far from immersion, it's far from deep meditation. So I stilled, settled, unified, and immersed my mind internally. Why is that? So that my mind would not be stressed. So even though if we're maintaining our thoughts on that positive side. It doesn't hurt anyone, but it kind of wears us out. So again, no, so this is the plug for deeper meditation. And that's, certainly where we also want to spend a lot of our time. So as he meditated, diligent, keen, and resolute, a thought of goodwill arose, a thought of harmlessness arose, and he said the same things about them. They don't hurt anyone. And like I said, goodwill or kindness, harmlessness or gentleness, I think find the words that really work for you in this same meaning. Doesn't hurt anyone. It nourishes wisdom. It's on the side of freedom from anguish, and it leads to, here I left the extinguishment, it leads to nibbana. If I were to keep on thinking and considering all day and all night, I see no danger in what would come from it. Still, it would tire my body, and when the body's tired, the mind is stressed. It's far from immersion. So I stilled, settled, and unified and immersed my mind internally, so it would not be stressed. Whatever a mendicant frequently thinks about and considers becomes their heart's inclinations. This is the way we're going. If we often think and consider thoughts of renunciation, then they've given up sensual thought to cultivate that thought of renunciation. If we're thinking of goodwill or harmlessness, we're thinking of kindness or gentleness, and we're giving up malicious thoughts, we're giving up cruelty. And then here's the balancing, or the other side of the simile. Suppose it's the last month of summer, when all the crops have been gathered within a village. So now the crops have been harvested, and the cow herd must take care of the cattle. And while at the root of a tree or in the open, it needs only to be mindful that the cattle are there. It doesn't have to prod them and poke them and stay, really on top of it all the time. You can just see them, they're grazing, no problem. In the same way, I needed only to be mindful of those things, that those things were there. So you're mindful of those kind, gentle, not clinging thoughts. My energy was roused up and unflagging. My mindfulness was established and lucid. My body was tranquil and undisturbed, and my mind was immersed in samadhi. And then the sutta goes through all the jhanas and then into the three knowledges and his whole awakening. And then says, suppose that in a forested wilderness there was an expanse of low-lying marshes, and a large herd of deer lived nearby. Then along comes a person who wants to harm, injure, and threaten them. They close off the safe, secure path that leads to happiness, and they open up the wrong path. There they plant domesticated male and female deer as decoys, so that in due course the herd of deer would fall to ruin and disaster. Then along comes a person who wants to help keep the herd of deer safe. They open up the safe, secure path that leads to happiness, and they close off the wrong path. They get rid of the decoys so that in due course the herd of deer would grow, increase, and mature. So he says, I've made this simile to make a point. And this is what it means. An expanse of low-lying marshes is a term for sensual pleasures. A large herd of deer is a term for sentient beings. A person who wants to harm, injure, and threaten them is the term for Mara, the wicked one. The wrong path is the term for the wrong eightfold path. Wrong view, wrong thought, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong mindfulness, and wrong immersion. A domesticated male deer is a term for greed and relishing. A domesticated female deer is a term for ignorance. A person who wants to help keep the herd of deer safe is a term for the realized one, the perfected one, the fully awakened Buddha. The safe, secure path that leads to happiness is a term for the Noble Eightfold Path. Right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion. So mendicants have opened up the safe, secure path to happiness and closed off the wrong path. And I've gotten rid of the decoys. Out of compassion, I've done what the leader should do who wants the best for their disciples. So here are the roots of trees and empty huts. Practice absorption. Don't be negligent. Don't regret it later. That's my instruction to you. That's what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the mendicants approved. Okay. So that's what I wanted to share. And, you know, we don't have empty huts here right now, but we have other things. And I thought we would talk about this and see what you all think. And of course, there are lots more ways we can delve into fleshing out the similes, or, you know, thinking in terms of, you know, how do these particular categories of thought come up in our own minds? Because I feel like when we find our personal examples for these things, that's what really brings it to life for us and really helps to guide us, because we all, you know, we all have a lot of things in common with regard to the way we think, but we all have different life experience too. And sometimes we can, you know, be inspired and find clarity through what someone else shares. And sometimes it's thinking of our own personal examples. So, anybody have any comments? Questions? It's nice to see you, Alex and Aiden, join us. Yes, okay.
I just want to share with you, you know, sometimes coming from work, you know, I sometimes have these thoughts which, you know, oh, I have to deal with XYZ person, and, you know, maybe like set the right expectations or set the right, I don't know, boundaries maybe. And, but it's not coming from a very kind of a, you know, it's not coming from a kind and gentle place,
Yeah.
let me say. So I'm just wondering, I mean, it is maybe important to set those boundaries and expectations, but yeah, any thoughts there? Like,
Well, this is great,
that?
really, because I feel like this is the sort of fodder. Could you hear him from online? Yeah. This is the sort of fodder that really helps us make this shift. Because when we catch ourselves like, okay, I've got this problem I have to deal with this person, and it doesn't start out coming from a very generous feeling, because we have the feeling of, you know, either it's like that situation where you're describing, it's your responsibility at work to make sure this person is doing what they're supposed to be doing, or getting along with people in a proper way, or whatever it is, right? But we also, because of that, it's like, because it's a problem, it's coming up as a problem, all of our defenses are there. And it's clear that that's just a normal human reaction. And I think we have to be on guard a little bit for thinking that that's somehow a good thing, to like put that out there in the world, that that's going to make a difference, a good difference, and actually it brings harm. So the transformation has to happen before it goes out into the world. But the fact that it comes up in a negative way is not a problem. It's what we do with it. So once we notice, okay, this is not coming from the place that I want to, this isn't the one that leads to wisdom. this occludes wisdom. So then, okay, how can I have this same thought from a place of kindness? How can I have this same thought? How do I say it? If I'm imagining what I'm going to say to this person, how do I say it from a place of kindness? When you make that shift, you can very much discover different ways of approaching this with them and still have the boundaries and still have the clarity, in fact, more clarity. And so I the Buddha was not, he didn't mince any words with his mendicants that were doing something wrong. He was like lightning, and so but he was totally there for them. And if they came back, if they changed, if they came back, it was totally fine. There was always this opportunity for kind of starting over. And that whole idea of another chance, is really a powerful one. And to see the good in the person also, so a lot of times the kind thought, the kind way of approaching it will include the good qualities that are a bit more hidden at that point when they're maybe not acting so great, and so this is exactly the wonderful kind of example of how that shift can be made. And sometimes people think Buddhism is just like all sweetness and you never think anything bad about anyone, or you never have any, like say anything harsh, or you never like criticize anyone. And that is just stupidity, really. You have to be able to see the unwholesome and call it out. So I was watching a Q&A with Ajahn Suchart the other day, and someone said, if I'm Buddhist and I'm, really giving, and then what is it if you're, feeling like you're being taken advantage of? And he said, that's because you're being dumb. No, I mean, he didn't say you. He said that's because, if you're letting yourself be taken advantage of, that's stupid. So it's good to notice that wisdom is essential and the boundaries are essential. And when people cross them, it does them no good, nor good for anyone else. So thank you for that example. Yeah, Deborah?
That was a really good topic, because I have boundary issues with people. I'm a caretaker of my mom, and I live with her, and I'm always saying yes to everything, and then I resent her because she wants so much from me, and I never let say. Someone said to me, "Why don't you just say, let me think about that, and I'll let you know." But I don't. I go right ahead. Yeah. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. And then I resent afterwards, and I'm angry. I'm so angry. And I'm angry at me, myself, and I'm angry at her. And it's not her fault. It's me. It's me that's doing it, because I don't say no, because I don't, I don't, like you say, it's stupid not to say it's stupid, because you should just say no, or let me think about that. But I don't. And then I resent that I said yes, and I resent, and then I'm angry that I have to go down and take care of everything, because I already said I was going to do it. So I have a dilemma with that. And when you were speaking about that, I'm like, oh, it sounds just like me. And I have a hard time with that. Someone said, don't say yes, say I will think about it, and then get back to them. That doesn't come out of my mouth. I wanted to, but it doesn't come out of my mouth. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, so you're bringing up a few different good things there, Deborah. One is you're talking about your relationship with your mom, and our relationships with our parents are extra complicated because, they were the ones who we had to depend on when we were completely helpless.
Mhm.
And we still have a tremendous amount of conditioning, no matter how old we are. Relative to them, we're still the kid.
Yes.
And we still have that in the back of our mind that we are dependent on their being okay. So when anything comes up that they're not okay and it's not okay for them, automatically all this in really instilled conditioning comes out of like, I got to make this okay. And so there's that issue with parents. So it's understandable that, like what comes out of your mouth is, yes, I'll do it.
Mhm.
I'm going to make this okay.
Yes. Yes.
And when we really think deeply about it, it's because we still believe that we're not going to be okay if she's not okay.
True. It's true.
So when we unpack all of that and we start to talk to our little child self in there and say, look, you really are okay. You're a grown up now. In fact, you're the one who's got to take care of her. So kind of getting that straightened out with that kind of unconscious childlike part of
Yeah.
ourselves, that helps. And then to realize that um like, I don't know, usually our mom knows us so well they can tell that underneath we're angry or resentful.
Yeah.
So again, it's like the Buddha said, these thoughts harm me, they harm others. And so from what I've learned is the way I can change that kind of deep conditioning to say yes is to really practice with it, really think about it. Think about those situations where you're saying yes, and go back through it and practice saying, I'll think about it, practice saying, you know what, I want to make sure you're okay, but I think I have to do it in this other way. Like I can't do it at that time because I need to do this other thing, or
Mhm.
somehow like slow it down. And
Yes.
it's really helpful to practice when we're stressed to slow it down.
Okay.
The tendency is to want to go faster because we're stressed and we got to get it done. But if we practice slowing down when we're stressed,
Yeah.
it really helps.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for that.
It,
Hi, Neil. Just a thought for Deborah. When your mom was your caretaker, did she always say yes to you? No way, huh?
Sophisticated question.
Yeah. Yeah, you're muted, Deborah. I don't know if you know that, but I can tell you're,
no, I know, not at all. No. No.
yeah,
No, it wasn't that way at all. She was my
yeah.
parent. Different now. I'm the parent. Seems like I'm the parent. Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
you
tough.
don't have to train her in the same way that she had to train you. But
No,
but
she's
but
getting her way.
it is a really good thing to recognize.
Mm,
Yeah.
it is. It is. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Neil.
A lot.
Yeah, Neil, I wish we could hear your words, but we still
No,
can't hear you.
that was a good one.
Yeah. Caredwin. I also am taking care of my mom. There are a lot of emergencies. I'm gonna take a look. Oh boy, this is
Caroline?
um there are a lot of emergencies have started thinking about if what she wants is an emergency urgent or is just something she wants right now. If it's something she wants, I sometimes say I need to take care of something else and I can do that later. Yeah, that's good.
It is good. That is good. I just say yes. Yeah. No. No.
Yeah,
That was good. Good night. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else got any comments or thoughts on this? Yeah, Ling.
Thank you, Ayya. I last week actually had this kind of two thoughts struggling. It's also related to work. I received an email from a kind of long-standing difficult colleague. She was very well known, difficult for everybody, and I had really bad confrontation with her already long time ago. I kind of renunciated for many years, and many people have difficult with her because she's in a position kind of bullying others. So I got email from her last Friday, and straight away I've just had this really fearful and terrified feeling. And in the past, I actually forwarded her email to my boss to kind of protect myself, but ended up having even bad result. So it took me half an hour just at that send button reply to her. And I went back home, and last weekend, it took me a whole weekend. I did so many like loving kindness meditation, like death recollection. And then finally, I think I kind of made peace. So on Monday, I decided maybe go to talk to this person and didn't make the work. But anyway, finally, I made that initial. I went to see her and I spoke to her. What happened was, I don't want to go to the details, but it was really hard to just seem like but I determined that I need to give her some, authentic kindness. And the first thing I saw her giving her comment about her dress, her jumper. We spoke, things went okay. But my experience, it took me 2 days and just kind of turn that thoughts. And I was wondering, and when I hear you read that sutra, I know, just like, I know it was hurting me. That's why I didn't press that send button. But my thoughts didn't vanish. Yeah. I was thinking a lot about, of course, the past, the fights and the confrontation. And it was how hurtful was like if I kind of act again, could jeopardize even further. And this time was all made peace in the end. So my question, I often thought about this and I tried this loving kindness meditation. Wisdom seems not spring up quickly. It took me 2 days, 3 days. Yeah. So I wonder if this is the right path. I'm sure it's the right path to keep doing it. But it was really difficult for disappearing.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Ling. I mean, first of all, what you're saying sounds like all the right things. I mean, to practice loving kindness meditation, to try to like bring up kindness instead of the fear and hostility, to think about death, because the Buddha said, those who remember that we're all going to die, then their quarrels end. you know, you were doing all the right things. You were pulling out all the important tools out of the arsenal, you know, like out of the tool bag, and yet it takes like time. One thing occurred to me as you were speaking is, how would you like to be someone who causes someone to have days of concern and consternation, you know, like feeling bad for days, just getting an email from me? Boy, wouldn't relish being in such a situation. What incredible suffering this person must have, because obviously their thoughts and words are from that side of malicious and cruel, and it does harm them as well as others. So what I believe about your experience is that it was incredibly helpful to you, and actually to her or them. Was it a woman?
It was just one person.
Yeah, I know, but was it a lady or a man?
It's a lady.
Yeah. Anyhow, for her, I imagine that you talking with her was much better than the usual kind of response she might get. And I think that the way this works is, the next time you have to do this, it'll probably be easier. You know, so as we practice, we gain more confidence and more ability. And I think that it'll take less time in the future. And then we develop, it's kind of like, I do think of it as kind of like going to the gym the first time when our muscles are all weak, you know. We can't do that much, but as we use them, we get stronger.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? On the Tuesday, I met another colleague. She's one of the best teacher in my school. She told me how badly she was treated by this person. She was in authority, and like, she was biggest bully in our school. She's been there for 20 years. She bullied everyone. She was in the authority. And I tried to comfort my colleague. I told her the sort of simile about, you know, I told her, back up, no, you know, don't get mad about her. I said, at least this person haven't shoot on me. But when I talk that, I feel like my whole body was, I remembered how she bullied me at the early years when I was working there. I feel like I went to the first thought. I was trying to help my colleague, my friend, I mean, her, you know, so ended up a Tuesday, I had totally very bad day in the evening, couldn't do the meditation thoughts. So this kind of tangent, it was over.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but you got through it without adding to it. I mean, it's interesting because, you know, you think about the conversations too, and in a way it's so important that people talk to each other about the problems they're having with someone, because you need that support, and you need to be clear about what is happening with this person. And then we have to be careful not to go too far with it. Like what you did was try to calm it down and bring some, you know, some relief to it. And then, but if we go too far with it, we're cultivating the animosity. So this is all in the same realm of like really looking at our thoughts and looking at our speech, and where is it causing harm, and where is it bringing more clarity, more kindness, more gentleness, more understanding. and still the boundaries, the clarity. I mean, you know, sometimes like the Buddha at the right time, you might have to say something sharp to make it clear, but not with negativity in the heart, if we can. But it's a real practice. It's the real challenge. Yeah. And it's not easy to just put it down, let it go, have it disappear. But the more we do it, the more we reflect on these things and you know, get clear about them, the more we handle them in a way that demonstrates wisdom and kindness, the easier it gets. Thank you, Ling. Serena?
It's interesting to me on Saturday mornings how many of these so practical and helpful things that come up really just hit the mark with me. And I'm really grateful for that. It seems like I'm doing a lot of inner searching lately and working on a lot of things. And one of them is slowing down. I have this little mantra I do when I get irritated. Boo, I take a deep breath and I say, boo to myself, boo to go slow. Somehow rhymes seem to help me remember a little bit better. I had something last night that with a neighbor, and it's interesting in the comments today, I realized that one thing that never occurred to me last night when I was irritated by this neighbor's noise, it never has occurred to me to send metta to these people. So that's one thing I can incorporate. And it's something that I think the first thing I thought about last night with this noise is Ajahn Chah sitting in the forest, saying he sat in the forest one time and the noise of partying came up and he was irritated and he realized, well, the sound isn't coming to me, I'm going to the sound.
Mm-hmm.
What I thought about this sound was, well, Ajahn Chah never heard this sound because this is technology he didn't hear. This is lowrider guy with modified sound that is the worst I've ever heard. It's like static, continual. I can't hardly even hear the music. All I hear is static on loudspeaker. And when it goes by my house, it literally vibrates the house and reverbs inside my house. Fortunately, it doesn't happen real often, and I've come a long way with it, but I notice that when it happens, I really get triggered and irritated. So slowing down is important, which never would have been possible for me until finding the neurological re-regulation process that does help me slow down. But what I thought last night was, okay, as long as I'm irritated, I don't want to act out of that. So I'm doing nothing until I can decide something more wholesome to think and do and be irritated and say something unfortunate. I'm doing nothing. Fortunately, it didn't go on too long and it stopped before I had possibilities that occurred. But what I'd like is actual words to think more wholesomely about the situation when I'm in that situation. I'm not sure what actually to think. I mean, I know the things that go through my mind, you know, well, should I just ignore it and just deal with my irritation? Should I just call in a noise report to the dispatch? But I don't even want to do that unless I can speak calmly, kindly. So what thoughts can I think in that situation? What words can I think to help me beyond Bhutto, go slow me down, what can I actually think? Maybe now I realize I could think loving kindness, metta thoughts.
Mhm. So, if I understood you right, is this somebody going by with a car?
Yeah, it's a lowrider car, that's been
Yeah.
modified for this, but it's the worst I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, obviously impermanence helps.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know, I've been in villages in Thailand, monasteries in Thailand where the music and the loudspeaker with stuff on it is really loud, and it's unbelievably capable of broadcasting through the monastery. And it can be pretty annoying, and you have no idea when it's going to stop. So at least they're driving by. And I think any of the things we've talked about could help. You have to see what really strikes you, but thinking about, being on the path to nibbana, complete peace, thinking about, like the Buddha talks about those 6 reflections of the Buddha, Dhamma, enlightened Sangha, your virtue, your generosity, and the devas. Thinking about the devas and how the devas, and what the Buddha says we should think about then is their qualities that allowed them to become devas. So like what qualities, you can think about the qualities that you have, that you're cultivating, that will make you fit in the deva realms. Like you're above this sound.
That's really helpful to me, Ayya. Thank you, because I think about the devas a lot lately. So I think thinking of what would Ajahn Chah do if he heard this, but also the devas, how would they'd probably send loving kindness, I guess.
Yeah, being filled with loving kindness, like helps. What I've found with annoying sounds, sometimes I can go deeper into meditation because there's like a push against the sound. Like there's a kind of like, like blocking it out. So I don't know, it probably won't last long enough to get you into jhana, but
Yeah.
they're gonna go by too fast, and then you're gonna say maybe they could just park outside for a while. No.
Unfortunately, they don't go by fast. They go.
Oh, okay. Well,
And this was just coming from in their driveway, not going anywhere. So
oh,
I don't know what's up with that, but it doesn't really matter. It's how I can work
yeah.
with the sound
course.
in a wholesome way. And this, I really have a lot now to do. And I think maybe because it's such a jarring vibration, maybe walking meditation when I'm irritated from that might
Yeah.
help. So I've got several things to try here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the help.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a look at the chat because I know there's a lot going on in there. Okay. Wow. Okay. Okay, we've got Jarrell. One thing that has really helped me in those situations is being kind to myself and asking myself, what experiences has this person had to have them create such a harsh story in their mind? I think that's earlier, yeah. Alex, thank you so much for the topic. I've struggled in the past with holding on to anxiety and worry for loved ones, thinking I'm doing it out of love. Hearing the teaching about kinds of thoughts you can think all day and night and would not cause harm to myself or others or both. Expressing my worry may make the other feel loved, but it's harmful to my mental health. it may harm the other two to have this expectation that I'm worrying about them. Letting go of the worry has been so beneficial to me, but now I come off as cold, I think. So I ended up harming us both. I mean, it is possible to it is possible to let go of the worry and still express our caring. Just something to consider. And Adrian's thought for Serena, oh great, a chance to practice patience. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
After
Wong?
you.
It's a new question, but
No, no,
if you
go
have
ahead.
something
Oh, to
related,
that. Okay,
then
yeah.
you should go.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have been thinking like the other piece, I think for myself and I think for others is you have to like first connect with like where you are and where your experience is. Like be careful about the like pushing away part. And so like for me as an anger type, which is different at KBV, I think, somewhat, like somewhat. There's something important about being able to connect here and know what it is and find a way to bring like a relationship to myself, maybe compassion, maybe clarity, and then consider what I want to put out or how I want to be with others. So I think that there has to be something about the also the pushing away. I'm just hearing aspects of the pushing away of the experience.
And
just
you don't want to push away the experience, that's for sure.
Right. I think that's a piece just that I hear and thinking
Yeah.
about how I'm trying to practice and what I'm hearing in others. And I think that there's also something, it's more like from a trauma perspective and like could fit with Dharma also is when we feel really hurt or traumatized, there's like a catastrophic loneliness like aspect to the experience that also is looking for some company, and it could be from ourselves or from somebody else. But I think that's connected to what happens if we push away before we connect.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I was saying in the beginning about the naturalness of the strength of that negativity coming through, and to know that that's there, to be with that.
Right.
Yeah, to see it for what it is, and then you process through it before you, like Serena was doing, you process through it before you do it. And Ling, major processing had to go on because it's so intense. So yes, I agree that making sure that we are being present with our own experience with that same kind of kindness and gentleness and acceptance. Like this is how it feels right now.
Like it's
And this is
hard.
the reaction I have. And it's okay to have that reaction because of all the conditioning I have, but now what do I want to actually bring about here? That kind of thing. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
It's important to emphasize that.
Yeah, I was having laying a lot of compassion for you when I was listening to you talk, like, oh, that's like a really hard to work someplace with somebody who's really a bully. And there's something about just caring about that for yourself, or I was caring about that for you.
And for the whole school, sounds like.
And for whoever has been impacted
The
by
whole
that.
school.
Yeah, that's all for me.
And
Thank
the
you.
person herself too.
Sorry,
Yes.
I used to think of different way to deal with this colleague. I thought I made a lot of peace because her initials is sometimes actually they have initials. So instead thinking harsh thoughts, I thought the initials means like metta Karuna. So it's MC. So whenever I got the email from her, I was like, oh, metta Karuna. And then I would develop this. It did help for years, but I'm surprised just like after a while, suddenly that kind of things, especially after I spoke to my colleagues. So I did feel like, yeah, this practice is just really, yeah, it's necessary, but it's harder to let it go. And also, I noticed there are still so much this difficult emotions
Yeah.
between me and her. I do, I do understand it's so hard for this person. In the whole school, people fear for her, and she obviously have loads of suffering. But it took me so long, still, even on practice,
Yeah. Yeah.
and still
Yeah.
was.
But it's
Okay.
good. It's good practice, even though it takes time. It's really good. Good practice. Huang, what was your question?
Oh, so I usually don't attend the Saturday session. So, how it goes, just people just bring their own story and ask for
Yeah, about the
consultation.
so we had first the teaching about right thought or right intention. And so the topic is on that. So it's really, I can't remember exactly when you came in, but I think it was maybe after
Yeah.
we had finished that part. So we're really focused on, looking at our thoughts, really, noticing whether our thoughts are coming from a negative kind of place of sensual desire, ill will, or harmfulness, or are they coming from a place of letting go, kindness, and gentleness? And then, from that point, the Buddha talked about setting aside those, or seeing the danger in those negative thoughts, and then the negative thoughts disappearing, and having those, you might say, positive thoughts of letting go, kindness, and gentleness, and that there's no harm in those, no matter how much we think them. And to really work with our thinking in a way that we are, even in challenging situations, like Meir had brought up, accepting that that's that negativity is there, or that that intensity, that feeling of needing to protect ourselves or protect others, or like with a harshness to it. But then seeing that the harshness doesn't protect ourselves or protect others. And so we're not going to want to act out of that kind of mental state. Hello, Kaylin. Welcome. So we're about at the end almost of our first session today. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add before we close off this part and send you off to meditate or eat or sleep or whatever it is it's time for? Yes, Serena?
What you just said, Ayya, and what I think Ling was talking about, the difficult emotions that come up. And I really got something that I think I've known, but haven't fully realized, that the way for me to work with this, because teachers have said how hard we are on ourselves in the West. And like we're harder on ourselves really than, almost on others. And I can see that. I've been seeing that a lot in myself a lot. So when this comes up for me, the thing is for me to realize not to go out to the sound, but go in to what's happening for me and how I can work with it without being hard on myself. That's what I can use some help with.
Yeah, that's right. And you know how, because it's really just being aware, isn't it, to catch it. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, thank you, Serena. Okay, friends.